everyone. My name is Austin Whipple. Welcome to this webinar. I'm happy to talk about phishing. It's one of my favorite things to do. I'm the Director of Platform Security here at BetterCloud. I have been working at BetterCloud for like 7 years now, I think 7 years at the end of this month. I came in when our security program was itty bitty tiny, and now it is highly automated, very complex, has a massive coverage. And so I've been here through the growth journey of that entire thing. Before I was at BetterCloud, I was at a company called Bishop Fox. I was a pen tester. I worked all day lying to people through social engineering, picking locks, breaking into networks and breaking into web apps. And I had a lot of fun. But you know, the consulting life was not for me. If you've been a consultant, you probably know what I'm talking about. Came to BetterCloud to just work on defensive security. And so this talk is sort of a phishing without the kitty gloves. So this is from the perspective of, you know, attackers. They don't really care about what your policies are. They don't really care about what sort of rules you put in place. Certainly, even as a consultant, I was bound by certain rules. There were certain things that we could not do. And then as a defensive security person employed by the company, there are even more things that I cannot do. But you know, attackers don't really care about any of that stuff. And I'm going to delve into what some of those things are and how you can protect against them anyway. So here's my disclaimers. First off, don't do stuff like this at home or at work. People have lost their entire careers for stuff like this. If you don't have the right permissions, or if you do it in sort of an uncouth way, you can lose your job, and that's not the intention here. I am going to illustrate some things here for you, and they may be cool or funny or whatever, but you know, try them at your own peril. And this is an example of phishing as an attacker. These people don't, as I mentioned before, they don't care about walls or rules that you've created around your phishing program. This doesn't translate perfectly to things for you to use in your phishing program, rather things that you need to protect against. It's unfortunate that there's a difference, but you don't want to be the person dragged in front of the company to explain why they got a phishing email that made everybody mad. So everybody gets mad at IT and security when bad phishing emails go out. For good reason, but nobody writes articles about the attackers using the same tactics for worse ends. So here's a couple examples. TripHub sent out a phishing email and got a whole bunch of negative press around this because it was like oh, you did so great at your job and come click on this link for a bonus. And you click on the link and it's like, congratulations, you're enrolled in phishing training, no bonus. And people sort of rightfully get pissed off about that sort of thing. Here's GoDaddy doing the same thing. And here's some British place, some train worker place. Anyway, it just makes end users angry. If an attacker does it, they're still angry, but they're not angry at the IT team. And so there's no outlet for that anger. That's sort of what I'm talking about here. This next slide only makes sense if the graphic loads, and if it doesn't load, then I can't really display. Hold on. I'm gonna have some technical difficulties here. Give me like 3 seconds. I'll try and restart this presentation. Wow, it's just not going to load for me. For whatever reason, that this screen won't load. So this is an example of what I used to do as a pen tester to lie to people to get them to click on my phishing emails. As a pen tester, it was really okay for me to lie to people. It was sort of my job. It was all right for me to lie to end users. There were still lines that we didn't cross. We never threatened people, for example. even though an attacker would, absolutely threaten people if they thought it was going to get them what they wanted. As an IT person running a phishing thing, you're probably not allowed to lie to people. It's probably considered very unprofessional to do that. Anyway, we would buy a domain. Let's say we were pen testing, Acme Corp. We would buy acmecorpit.com. And then we would register a subdomain internal. So we would have the site internal.acmecorpit.com, and we would pass it off as an internal website to Acme Corp. And then we would just start calling people. We would call them on the phone. We would call them and say, hey, Linda, this is Jim from IT, and I am trying to figure out why everybody's devices are not updating. Could you please go to internal.acmecorpit.com? And if it was a large enough company, a sufficiently large enough company, there's no way that they're going to know who the IT team is. And even if they call you on it, you can just say, I'm a new employee. And almost without fail, if people had time, people would go to the website. They wanted to help. They were naturally friendly. They would go to the website and we would say, thank you for going, thank you. This is just our internal site that we use for testing people's computers to see if they have all the updates installed. So can you click that check for updates button? And they'd click the check for updates button and it would roll. You can see it sort of rolling through here and checking for updates. It was just a hard-coded site. It wasn't doing anything special. It'd be really cool if we could have internal users go to websites and have it check for updates, but we know that that's not quite the way that the web works. Anyway, it was hard-coded that the first three would pass and then the last one would fail. And they would say, oh, it looked like this bottom one is red. And we would say, oh my God, that's the one that everybody's computer is failing on. That's the one that we need you to download. Your computer is showing up as not having this latest update. Can you please do it? The CIO is writing my ass and he wants everybody to be updated by the end of the day. Can you just click that download button? That will install the Windows updater. And so, of course, they would say, yes, I'm going to do this. They would click the button. The button would download something that really did look like a Windows installer. And absolutely, it was just connecting back to us on the other side. It was, installing the keylogger, installing persistence, and then opening up a reverse shell back to us so that we could then execute further commands on their device. That's just like one example of the kinds of phishing that I used to do. All right, let me go back to my presenting mode here. Yeah, so from there, use a tool like Metasploit, or I would use some sort of other payload creator, use Veil or some sort of other antivirus evasion. If I was really basic, I might just use Python, especially if I knew that the end result or the end user was running an OS X box, because you basically can't limit Python if somebody's running OS X. You can, it's just very difficult. The operating system needs it to run. And then I would start dropping a keylogger. Like I mentioned, I would steal all the browser cookies. I would start logging in as that person all over the web in internal tools, external tools, to see what I then had access to. Or I might let OAuth just phish you for me. I might create a fake Google or Microsoft app that is just called Acme Corp IT or Acme Corp Updater or Acme Corp. You can think of, a million tech terms that might fit here, and then just request OAuth permissions that people are likely to grant. If we're really honest, end users don't always look at OAuth permissions. If we're really, really honest, we don't always look at OAuth permissions because we click through a whole bunch of OAuth apps every day. And so you just create a malicious app and you have them log in through a legitimate service like Microsoft or Google, and ta-da, you've got access to everything. These are a couple examples of bad apps through real sites, especially if you're really harping on training your end users to look at the URL that they're going to. They'll look at the URL and go, login.microsoftoffice.com that looks legit to me, and then give away access to their account. So what can I do? Oh shoot, my picture's on top of it. But you can see my email here. You can start, once you've gotten access to their OAuth, you can then start taking their emails. You can send emails as that person. You can maybe get access to source code that they have access to, or everything in their Google Drive. You can really just start stealing everything. So let me just talk about consequences for a little bit. I mentioned stolen data a little bit. You can then impersonate and pivot from there. Now I'm no longer Jim from IT external to the company, but now I am Linda at this point. I have a greater foothold and ability to send out my phishing emails, because now it looks like they're coming from an internal user instead of an external user. If we're talking about coming from an actual attacker, this can be quite worse. This can be fines or very bad publicity. Nobody wants to be responsible for being like the end page on a I don't know, the front page on a Friday night, this company got hacked or that sort of thing. Even if it doesn't expose customer information and it was just like a bad phishing email, that still looks really bad for the company. Okay, so this talk is not actually all doom and gloom. I do have 3 sets of things that you can do for yourself or for your end users or for your company to protect. Since that's really my day job is not just to have fun blowing people up. My day job is to actually make things better. So teach coworkers the signs of a bad email, help them get comfortable checking metadata. So this is a Gmail view, but you can do the same thing in Outlook or whatever, whatever you've got your end users using. Click that little down button and you can see the metadata about the email. So mailed, signed by, at the bottom, those are real. Those are not spoofable unless you've stolen some private keys. But the from and the reply to, get them used to sort of discounting those. We had a user the other day who they had sent an email to a prospect and they got an email back from that user, and it had the right reply to, but it had a wrong mailed by and signed by address. That end user had actually been hacked and was replying to our prospect with a malicious payload. They forwarded it to the team instead of digging into the payload, and we were able to avert whatever disaster might have befallen them. Reach out to repeat offenders. What I have realized in my time at Better Cloud is that there are some people who don't just naturally get better. And it's not because they're dumb, and it's not because they don't care. It's because nobody is hired to detect phishing emails. They're hired to do financial analysis. They're hired to be a developer. They're hired to work in HR. It is not their full-time job, nor is their peak passion to discover phishing emails. And so some people need a little bit of personal coaching before they get better. And the sooner that you start that conversation and the more culturally acceptable you make it, the quicker that they will improve. And then you can train them to check the OAuth app, either by checking the app or checking the metadata about the app to find out, was this actually created by an internal user, or is it created by somebody with a domain name that suggests that they're from a different country, that sort of thing. A strong phishing program. So here at Better Cloud, we've got an automated phishing program. That automated program automates the enrollment of phishing training if they fail a phishing exam. That was a big weight off of our shoulders. Setting up SPF and DKIM and DMARC, you've probably done that on your own domains. You probably had to, but setting up those on your phishing domains that you use is really a step up in terms of being able to make your phishing emails appear very legitimate. Once we started doing that, we started getting more success with our phishing program, which is sort of a double-edged sword. Yeah, I mean, you want less success with the program, but I like breaking into people's computers, so it was more success for me. It certainly helped expose, where we thought we were good versus where we actually were. And then create a culture of encouraging progression without shame. Shame doesn't stick. You cannot shame people into long-term improvement of their behavior. You can encourage people into long-term improvement of their behavior, but you can't shame them into it. And then spend some time creating believable scenarios. If your automated program isn't doing it for you, if you don't have something that's doing that, create your own believable scenarios that you think people might click on as actual employees of your job. All right, and I will only spend a short amount of time plugging our actual product. We have a tool called BetterCloud Discover, and it will tell you who is using single sign-on or OAuth to log into apps using their own like corporate credentials. And so you can use Discover to find, especially if you sort by users ascending, you can find the apps that only a couple people are logging into. And with a little bit of digging, you can discover, oh, shoot, I really don't actually want them to be logging into that at all. I better revoke those permissions and blacklist this app and prevent our users from logging into it in the future. I think that's it for, yep, that's it for this entire presentation. There's Q&A that you can click on down at the bottom, and you can type questions. I ran through this really fast. We certainly didn't take the whole time that we were planning, but I'm happy to sit here and answer any sort of questions about a mature security program, about our product, about phishing, about my shed background, if you want to, just whatever is on your mind, as long as it is sort of tangentially security related, I'm happy to talk about it. If not, if a couple minutes go by and I start seeing participants disappear and nobody's got stuff in the Q&A, then we'll just end early.
I have a question for you. This is Yum, community manager.
Hi,
Hello.
what is your question?
Did you always want to do this when you were growing up?
Yes. So when I was younger, my dad did not want me to play video games, and he worked in the computer industry as well. He did not want me to play as much video games as I played, but I did want to play video games. So I would wait until he left for work, and then I would try and get onto the computer. He'd put like a password on there, and so I would figure out his password, or I would log onto his computer when he would log on for me, and then I would disable his monitoring software. This is in like the late 90s. And so he would put a stronger password on, or stronger policies, or better software, or whatever. And I wanted to play video games enough that it became this arms race where he was constantly trying to defend his computer, and I was shoulder surfing him or uninstalling things that shouldn't have been uninstalled. I was just sort of breaking his policies. And he had been he was doing computer stuff for the, and sort of naturally ended up in a security career because he was learning all these things about password stuff. I was learning about brute forcing, and I learned at a young age how to like take password hashes and begin cracking them using the tools that he was using at work to like display to all these other Army people like how to learn computer security. Anyway, by the time I got into high school, I had really mastered this without really knowing what I was doing, and it became a very natural career progression to go from there to an IT degree in college, and then from there to I started at Bishop Fox and just had been doing security since for longer than I realized.
That's funny. You've been training for this your whole life.
Yes. Yeah.
If you haven't been training for this your whole life, what would you suggest that you do to get into this career path?
Oh, I mean, that's a great question. Almost everybody who I work near, almost everybody that I know that works in the security field either started as a programmer and then just learned more about the operating system and how to break into things and sort of moved into web app testing. Or does sort of lower level security testing, or they started in IT. They knew a lot about networking and operating systems, and then they move into security from there. Both paths are great, solid foundations that sort of can lead into security. But I mean, I don't know. Technology is such an easy to get into field. You really just, if you want to do it, there are tons of resources online, even places like, web app hacking challenges. You guys can still see my screen, right?
Yeah, we can see it.
Yeah, cool. I mean, even just searching for things like this on the internet will lead you to places where you can break into. I mean, normally you can't break into websites, right? That's not allowed. But there are websites out there or downloadable VMs that will let you practice this sort of thing for you. Google Gruyere is one that I used when I was in college. It's a fantastic resource because it walks you through exactly what you're supposed to do, but it doesn't give you the answers right away. And you've got your own independent AppSpot instance, and it gives you a tutorial and everything. I have done a lot of these things and broken into them, and they were great. They were great resources to learn how to. Was that too fast? It might have been a little bit too much. Then
Perfect.
Okay, great.
I don't know anything about app security, but I might try. Jennifer complimented you on your background.
I saw. Thank you, Jennifer,
Yes.
so much. Yeah.
Jennifer for the win. I think if we don't have any other questions, last chance, guys. If you have any questions, we still have Austin. And if not, I will let you guys go. I see people dropping, so I think we're safe to turn it off.